The year is 6567. The world has fallen into frozen chaos. The gods of different pantheons have warred for many centuries. They now lay dead after wasting the world into apocalypse. Only a few gods have survived, but none have gained as much power as the Frosted Queen herself, Eneida. She now haunts the world with her frigid reach, covering it in eternal snow. 2 decades have passed since the Forever Frost. The few survivors of the world now turn to their sun gods for the sun to return to the sky. Terithria, the greatest empire in the known world, has now been reduced to smaller backwater towns. Or should I say, back-frozen towns. The empire has predicted the fall of the world and now depends on the safety of the great hearths erected for the survival of life. Your party stands in the new capital of the empire, New Decathia. Now, I'm not currently running this campaign just yet, but we're about to in maybe a month. I love Frostpunk and I wish I could forget the game, but then they released Frostpunk 2. And now I'm like an alcoholic having withdrawal symptoms. However, I'll be making pointers about how I'm gonna run this campaign. This campaign is heavily inspired by the first game, so the story is going to be about the town trying to stand on its own 2 feet, managing resources, surviving the cold, caring for the sick and dying, and providing hope for a better future. This is Frostpunk. I believe that the story and setting should be extremely desperate. Cold temperatures, lack of food and resources, risks of dying while exploring. These elements should be what you consider when running a campaign like this. A gritty survival-style campaign in an extreme temperature and setting. I showed this game to a friend recently and he loved it. He said, quote, "This game is like the Dark Souls of city builders," unquote. And then he action rolled away. When thinking about what story to tell and what characters to put into the world, I think about the unyielding human spirit, or an Elden Ring player who beat the game with a Neuralink. We're gonna think big details and work our way down to smaller, finer ones. First, let's establish the town. New Decathia's location is in a valley, or a hole like in Frostpunk. There are 2 main ways to leave the town, the western and eastern frontier. The main logging area is called the Last Forest. Being in a valley means the deep mines are rich with minerals and metals. The Church of the Faith of the Warm Light, I know, it's a mouthful, is the center of religious practice. The Kingdom's Keep is the hub of the guardsmen to keep the order of the captain enforced. The Great Heart provides warmth to the citizens of New Decathia. There are attempts by the engineers to expand the radius of the Great Heart's warmth. A makeshift solution for additional members of the community stay in the lower city. We can create multiple factions and groups by how the town is structured. The frontiersmen are those who venture out of the town for supply runs, do cartography, and to find survivors. Lumberjacks make timber in the Last Forest. Miners risk mining within the deep mines. The Engineers Guild tends to the Great Hearth to maintain and possibly improve its capabilities. The Church provides solace and patient care to the weary in soul and body. Now we can come up with important individuals who are in the town and what factions they're a part of. I know the factions do come in the second game, but come on, hear me out. Captain Arbor Fellowsbury is the Lord of New Decathia. He tries his best to keep the safety and the order of the town. He is a kind and compassionate man and will do everything in his power to save everyone he can. Bishop Pius Fellhand is the current leader of the new religion of New Decathia called the Faith of the Warm Light. He is a generous leader but is extremely spiteful to non-believers and criminals. He will use his influence on Captain Arbor by appealing through the needs of the people. Sergeant Bill Miletus is the leader of the guardsmen and frontiersmen. He is extremely strict and brutal to criminals who disrupt the sanctity of New Decathia. He will use his influence on Captain Arbor by appealing with the mindset of the few for the many. Elfrida Carpernica is the head engineer of the Engineers Guild who maintains the Great Hearth. He will do everything in her power to maintain the Great Hearth. Extremely intelligent and loyal to the captain. These are the important individuals that the party is going to need to know. I even listed some minor characters that the players can find importance in, like a charitable sister of the faith, a strict foreman, a bully guardsman, and an experienced frontiersman. I showed these individuals to the players to help them understand the setting of the campaign and when they create their characters. One thing I didn't show was the individuals that could disrupt the peace of New Decathia. The Separatists is a faction that wants to return to Decathia to find a plane-traveling scroll. Decathia is completely destroyed, by the way. Mortimer Granger, the ringleader of the Separatists, hopes to garner more followers on his quest to return to Decathia. The Separatists will try to steal as much rations and supplies for their trek. This faction will be a good tool for the story plot later on. I never truly write the whole story of the campaign before I start running it, so I only come up with ideas that I could use later on, so here are some ideas. Lumberjacks are getting severely injured when heading deeper into the forest. They describe the monster to be as tall as a mountain and claws like a bear. They say it's a crazed polar bear because of its fur, but in fact, it's a Yeti attack. A new law has passed. The age limit to be a worker has been lowered. A young teen has gotten himself stuck in the deep mines. It has attracted a hibernating monster, and the cave is collapsing. Sister Alice was headed to the clinic with a large amount of medicine for her patients. She has been assaulted and beaten with a sliver of her life. The culprit must be caught and sentenced. Spoiler, it's the Separatists. The frontiersmen have found what remains of a high elven city. The buildings remain intact and no life seems to be present, except for what looks to be a working great hearth. It's good to always be prepared for the first session, so I wrote a couple of these just in case I wanted to change the prologue or flow of the campaign. It's also important to integrate your player's backstory in the campaign to get them invested. A Frostpunk board game already exists, but it's not exactly a TTRPG, and DnD is the most supported TTRPG I know that has a bunch of resources for homebrewing, you know? So that's why I chose D&D. If you guys have noticed, this campaign could very end up becoming a sandboxy type of game where players would try to invest into helping certain factions with resources or requests. And that's okay. I'm gonna try and implement some survival mechanics that really give this campaign the Frostpunk feel. In Frostpunk, the Great Storm arrives in 48 days. Let's give the players a solid 50 days to complete all the tasks they want to complete to hopefully survive the storm. At random days, the cold level increases or decreases. I'll be making it colder as the days go by. Maybe I'll roll like a dice if it goes up or down, and I'll decide maybe in a week that it goes up or down. It's fucking freezing. Of course there's gonna be mechanics for the cold. There's a post I saw in the Rime of the Frost Maiden subreddit that I'll leave in the doobly-doo, and they showed me some pretty interesting mechanics. Unfortunately, they were using Fahrenheit, which is not cool. So we'll use Celsius and have a base temperature of 0 Celsius, and every negative 10 Celsius, the cold level increases by 1. They use hourly checks here, but I think I'll make it easier and use a daily roll instead and make them roll again if the cold level increases because of certain factors. Every failure decreases all ability scores by 1, giving you 1 point of frost exhaustion. If one ability score drops to 0, the creature dies. For each hour resting, 1 frost exhaustion point is removed. I'm also going to be taking inspiration from Don't Starve. There's an item in the game called the Thermal Stone. I'm going to turn that into a heat stone that the frontiersmen bring to keep them warm. Here's a list of modifiers that affect the cold level. If the players decide to leave town, they get to choose how far they want to explore. There are 4 distances that they can choose from: near, midway, far, and the furthest frontier. Each distance consumes 1 ration and 1 day to explore and return home incrementally. So near would use 1 ration and 1 day, and midway would be 2 rations and 2 days, except the furthest frontier. The frontiersmen are only allowed 3 days worth of rations to explore. If they want to stay longer or go further, they would have to hunt for their food. Near distance would have difficulty to find anything useful, as the frontiersmen have found most things there. This means that the further you go, the bigger chance of finding something useful. Here's some arbitrary percentages of what I think would be the chance of finding nothing based on distance. So, those are my plans for the upcoming campaign. I'm probably gonna change a lot of these on the go as the campaign continues, but this will be my first survival-centric campaign. I usually run epic hero adventures or grimdark stories where some monster wants to skull fuck you till you're nothing but dust. I've been wanting to do a survival adventure for a while now, and hopefully this will be just as fun. If you guys have any suggestions or questions on the mechanics, let me know in the comments below. And that's it, mortals. The devil has delivered, and our deal is done. See you next time.